Hello, and welcome back to the UX Business Architect, where we merge UX design, business strategy, and entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Mercedes Johnson, a design consultant, and in today's episode, we're going to be covering workshop prep and facilitation. I'll go through the makeup of a solid workshop, some of the things that you'll need to bring with you to make sure it runs smoothly, and how to get buy in to conduct one. So go ahead, grab your beverage, sit back, and let's jump right into it. All right, let's get started. Today we're going to be covering workshop prep and facilitation using AI. But just to kind of give you a lay of the land, if you're just now jumping in to cover where we've been and where we're going, we started off whenever we were working with a brand new team. So you get a new client or you started with a new job and you're trying to figure out, what do I do? If that's where you're at in your UX design process or with your clients or in your business or whatever, go back and watch that video. Then from there, it's okay, you've started with your team, you figured out how you guys work, what problem you're trying to solve, so on and so forth. And now you have to figure out who is your target audience, right? And that's where you go into your personas. And so that is the next video. If that's where you're at, where you're currently trying to figure out who's your customer, who you're buying for, what are their wants and needs, then that's the video for you. Where we're at right now is workshop prep and facilitation. So at this point in time, you've figured out what your current problem is that you're trying to solve. And you're at the point where you're like, okay, now let's do a workshop with our client and let's figure out, what it is that this big product is going to turn out to be. Or depending on the workshop that you're running, you'll see what the outcome is going to be. And we'll dive into that in a second. But after this, we're going to go into leveraging AI for predictive insights. So at that point in time, you've already run your workshop, you have all of this research, and you have to figure out what the heck to do with it, right? AI can help with that. It's a great, great partner and tool for helping with that. So we'll get into that next time. And then we'll wrap it all up with rapid design and presentation with AI. So at that point in time, your client, you're going back after you've done the workshop, after you've done the synthesis, and you say, hey, this is what we're going to do, or this is what we're proposing, or this is the new design, so on and so forth, depending on whatever situation you're in. So that's where we're headed. But just to give you a lay of the land, if this is your first time joining, I am Mercedes Johnson. I have been in the design field for six or 7 years. I don't know, I've lost count. But I am a consultant. So I help clients in all different industries all over the world to help them build better products for their customers, whether it's helping fix an existing product and coming in and figuring out how they can make it better, or adding on new features, or just completely from the ground up. That is my job from start to finish. I come in from concept all the way to delivery, and I'm here to share my experience with you. I have a plethora of experience from the workforce, but also a really strong educational background. So this is my way of giving back, and I hope you guys enjoy it. All right, so workshop breakdown. Today, you are going to learn what you need to do to facilitate a workshop. We're going to go through all the tools and the tips. We're also going to make sure that your prep is good to go and you know what it is that you're doing so that you can own the workshop, right? So not necessarily are we going to get into all the different kinds of workshops because there's a lot of those, but you are going to feel empowered to lead a workshop and walk into it prepared. Okay, so as I mentioned, there are a whole bunch of different kinds of workshops, and there is absolutely no way I can cover them all in this video. So I just wanted to bring up some of the ones that are popular in the field that I have done multiple times that maybe you might want to add into your toolkit. So for example, we have the Crazy Eights. Crazy Eights is really great for ideation, right? So if you're trying to come up with a whole bunch of different ideas, or if you're just trying to do like a warm up with your team, right? This is really awesome for developers, bringing them in and having them do a Crazy 8 workshop. It definitely makes their brain work in different ways than they're used to, because it does require a pen and paper. So you bring a piece of paper, you fold it into 8 different squares, and then each participant has 1 minute to draw out, literally draw with pen and paper or pencil, their idea of how to solve the problem that you brought forth in that workshop. So that is a really great way to get people's minds flexing and working really quickly and get a whole bunch of ideas out on the table. Because no idea is a bad idea, but there are some ideas that are better than others, right? Okay, so then problem framing. How might we workshops are super great if you're trying to figure out how can you solve a problem, how can we approach this, right? Instead of it coming, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this, and in an authoritative kind of manner, let's kind of change our thinking and frame it in the form of a question, right? Because that opens up our perspective and our ability to ideate around a question, right? If you tell someone to do something versus asking someone how to do something, then you have a better discussion. So how might we is really great for problem framing. Understanding the user. So if you're at the point where you're like, I don't really know who my user is, or like you're in a startup and you're trying to figure out what are their pain points, empathy mapping workshops are a really great tool for that as well. There are a lot of great templates online that you can use. They're pretty standard. But all these workshops, you can pretty much Google them and figure out how do I facilitate a how might we workshop, a Crazy 8s workshop, so on and so forth. But if you're interested in that, let me know and we can dive into it deeper. And then another really common one is the now, next, later. This is for prioritization. So let's say at this point in time, you've already figured out all the different features that you want to add into your roadmap, right? And you're just trying to figure out, well, what order do we actually do them in? That is a great indicator for you to lead a now, next, later workshop, so that everyone gets aligned on what is most important for the business, everyone's voices get heard. At this point in time, you're probably pulling in your product, your design, and your business stakeholders into this workshop, because you're going to want to get a level of effort for each of the features identified. You're going to want to make sure that design has a say and how long it's actually going to take them to do that. And then the business, of course, to prioritize how that's going to impact the business overall. So these are some really common ones. Again, there are so many, and I cannot go into all of them. But if that's what you guys want to learn more about, I'm happy to do so. But ultimately, you need to know what problem you are trying to solve, right? Are you trying to solve a roadmap? Are you trying to make a decision? Are you trying to get feedback? Are you trying to do brainstorming? If you're trying to figure out what workshop that you need to run, you first need to answer, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? That's going to give you a better idea of what workshop you need to do, right? So if you're in the beginning phases and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, who is our customer? Well, then an empathy mapping workshop is probably the one that you need to go for, right? But you need to have a very clear idea of what that problem is before you can pull out the workshop tool. All right, so here's kind of what we're going to go through today. We're going to talk about creating an outline. This is going to be like pretty much everything that you need in order to get buy-in for your workshop. All the things that kind of just frame what your workshop is going to be, right? Then we're going to go into gathering and building materials. So you got your buy-in and now you're like, okay, let's actually do the thing. What do you need? So we'll go through that, the things that you need to do, and then facilitation must-haves, the things that you want to have with you before you do your workshop, right? They never really tell you that, and it's kind of important to know like what you're bringing in your little buggy. So I'm going to tell you that today because I've definitely learned a lot along my career. All right, so starting with the first one, why does the outline matter? It matters because it helps you understand what your objectives and your outcomes are going to be. You need to know this at the very beginning of your workshop, right? You don't want to figure this out after the fact because you want to be able to provide value up front and know what value you're going to provide before you actually provide the value, especially if it is that you're trying to get buy-in to do the workshop, you have to have a really good understanding of what is the objective and what is your client going to get out of the workshop before they hand you all of the money to do it, right? So it helps to get stakeholder buy-in if you have all of this kind of packaged up in the beginning, right? And then it also makes sure that your workshop is structured and impactful. Like, no one wants to go to an 8-hour meeting and come out of it and feel like they have accomplished nothing, right? So making sure that you as a facilitator know exactly what steps you're going to take during the workshop and having a very good idea of what that workshop is going to look like down to pretty much the minute is going to help you bring more impact and bring more value to your clients and to your stakeholders. All right, so defining workshop objectives. There are 3 questions that you definitely want to ask yourself. What problem are you solving, right? So by facilitating this workshop, what problem are you going to solve, right? That has to be very clear and outlined before you get started. As I mentioned, whenever you're trying to decide what workshop you want to facilitate in the first place, you have to know what problem you're going to solve, right? And so that is question number 1. Next, why does this matter to the team? Why does this problem need to be solved, right? Like, what is the business value that's going to come with this problem being resolved? You need to know that as a facilitator or as the person who's trying to get someone to purchase this workshop, you need to know what that value is. And it also needs to map to a business goal, right? So I'm going to do this workshop for you because it's going to improve collaboration between departments to reduce project delays by 20%, right? If you can add something in there that is measurable, and even better yet, turn it into a dollar value, that is going to speak volumes, right? Because at that point in time, it makes the person who's purchasing the workshop or whoever it is that's going to greenlight the workshop a no-brainer to say, yeah, okay, let's do that. If you've taken the time up front to identify how this workshop is going to impact their business, where it's going to impact their business, and by how much it's going to impact them, right? Everyone at the top is worried about the bottom line, the dollars, 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 right? And of course, it's really hard to identify exactly how much, like it's going to be exactly 20%. Like that's really difficult to do. And I understand that. So at this point in time, when you're trying to figure out what is the measurable impact, you want to take a very highly educated guess. And this is where it comes to you doing your research up front, right? So this might be you looking at other companies that are working more efficiently in the area that you're trying to improve and saying, okay, do I think I can realistically get this company from where they are today to where that company is, and how much more efficient is that company operating than this company, right? And you need those numbers. So whenever I was trying to measure impact, for example, for one of my clients, yeah, I went down to like the nitty gritty of figuring out, okay, well, what is the salary range of each of your employees, right? I don't need to know the details because that's very personal. But I asked them like, what's the average salary range? And then from the workshop that I was facilitating and the problem that I was trying to solve, I guesstimated, right? Take an educated guess that by bringing in this solution, I could either remove or shift an entire person's work load, right? And so their total salary was something that I saw as a savings by me implementing this solution. So let's just run hypothetical numbers. Let's say their salary was $75,000. Hey, by me coming in, facilitating this workshop, and solving this problem for you, I can save your company $75,000 a year on average, right? Because I know that this one person's job is going to be eradicated because of the solution that I plan to implement, right? So that's kind of making it like real granular and breaking it down into the real world. You can get to these numbers, but you have to be creative, right? And you have to know what problem you're solving, right, before you can get to the numbers. So it's possible. And if you can bring this at the beginning, it's going to make it So hard for them to be like, you know what? No, I actually want to spend that $75,000 every year, even though I don't have to, as you're saying. Yeah, come on, make it easy to say yes. Okay, so defining the desired outcome. What should participants walk away with, right? If they come out of this workshop, what are they going to get? Are they going to get a roadmap? Are they going to get, I don't know, new features and added into their backlog? You should know that, right? So include it in your outline. Also, what impact should it have? Again, going back to that problem, that initial research at the beginning, making sure you know what impact the workshop is going to have, making sure it's measurable. And then what is the deliverable going to be packaged in? How are you going to hand over the results of this workshop over? Is it going to be in a PDF document? Is it going to be a Figma file? Is it going to be a printout? Is it going to be a poster? I don't know. You need to figure that out though, because it's just like you going to the store and you purchasing something. I'm not going to walk in and be like, okay, well, I'm just going to scan this. No, like you want to know what you're buying before you buy it, right? So making sure that you include that in your outline, you think about it up front. If you have a template of what you're going to hand it over in, showing them the template of some dummy data is also super helpful so they can have a visual. A lot of people in this space, our clients, are visual learners, which is great because we're visual people. So if you can show them what it looks like, even better. So for example, you might say, by the end, teams will have a mapped out and agreed upon workflow to streamline cross-team collaboration, right? So that could be something that you say your client is going to get. Okay, now let's move into the agenda. This is definitely something that you can use AI to generate for you. Don't waste your time, but you need one, right? And when you go through it, you want it to be down to the minute, right? Like you need to know, hey, we're starting at 9 and 9:15 we're shifting to this. From 9:15 to 9:30 we're doing this. Like down to the minute. And granted, it's not going to go that way, but you need it to be as structured as possible. The people need to feel like you put in the time, and you need to know what you're doing the entire time that you're there. Like you don't want to have empty space, right? So this agenda is super, super important, but all I can stress is that you need to have it broken down to the minute from start to finish. But you also need to add in breaks, right? People need to go potty. People need to stretch their legs. They need to get their blood flowing. People get bored. They're going to check out. Give them opportunities to go and breathe and stretch and all that jazz in your agenda. So make sure it's included. All right. So elements to include in your agenda. Make sure that you have icebreakers. Icebreakers at the beginning are super helpful to get people talking to one another and making sure that there's good energy in the room. You don't know what they started their day with or how to deal with that morning, but you don't want them to bring it into your workshop, right? So get them talking, get them engaged, make sure that it's fun and lighthearted, and everyone participates in it. You also want to make sure that you have group discussions, right? Give them opportunities to talk to each other. You don't want it to be you telling them the solution every time, right? Because they need to feel like they came up with the ideas, because ultimately they should be coming up with the ideas, not you. You might have an idea of what a possible solution looks like, but the workshop is for them, right? It's not for you. So get them talking, and then make sure it's a hands-on exercise. Again, get them moving, get them engaged, make sure that they're actually participating. So as you think through like the different activities that you want to include in your workshop, try and make sure that you make it engaging, get them moving up and around the room. Like I had one workshop I was leading with 35 different people, and I had to put large posters up around the room so that they had to rotate in groups, right? It's really hard for people to clock out and like disengage when you have like musical chairs happening with 35 people, right? But think of ways that you can make your workshop engaging and get them up and moving. So think about that as you're planning your activities. Recap and next steps. Always make sure that you recap at the end. This is super important because while, let's say you did 8 hours of a workshop, people are not going to remember everything that they came up with, right? All the ideas. There's going to be so much idea flow throughout the day. You want to make sure that you're capturing that, right? And that they are capturing that, right? You also want to make sure all of that gets included in your deliverable. A lot of the times, stakeholders are going to ask you like, oh my god, I came up with all these great ideas, like I don't want to lose them, right? So also make sure you have a really good note taker whenever you're facilitating, because you can't do both. If you want to record using AI, that's definitely an option if you have the bandwidth and capacity to do so. There are a lot of AI note taking tools out there that can help you with that, but make sure that you've recapped everything for them, put it in a nice, pretty package, and they know what they did that day before they leave. And again, the scheduled breaks, make sure they're included. Okay, so let's say you're trying to get someone to pay you to do a workshop. How do you get buy-in? Well, you need to be clear on why the workshop is needed, right? We covered that. You need to make sure that you show what the outcomes and the benefits are. We've covered that. You need to make sure that it aligns to the business goals and priorities, right? And you need to make it easy for them to say yes. As long as you've done all of the things that we've talked about, it really should be a no-brainer to be able to go and get your client to buy into a workshop. As long as you know what problem you're solving, the objectives and outcomes, what they're going to get out of it, the structured agenda, and you're prepared, right? But ultimately, your job as a facilitator is to make sure that you create real, actionable results, right? You want to make sure that they know coming out of this workshop, what are they supposed to do next? What are the next steps? If you have not made that crystal clear, then it's going to be really hard to convince that client to do that workshop again or to do another workshop again, right? Because let's say realistically, when you're working with a client, you're not just going to do one workshop over your entire period of a product development cycle. You're going to do multiple workshops, right? And so if they feel that you're not good at facilitating, or they come out of it with questions or feel like they've wasted their time while working with you, then they're not going to continue to be enthusiastic about the ones that you're going to need in the future, right? So again, make sure that your objective is to make sure you come out of it with real actionable results. All right, let's move on. Gather and build materials. This is the most time consuming part, right? Which is why AI is a great tool to use at this point in time, right? And that's also another just good indicator to start baking into yourself is if it's time consuming, something that's going to be strenuous or tedious or whatever, think, is there a way that I can use AI to help me to do this? The answer is probably yes. All right, so copy content and ideation. So let's say you don't know what workshop you're going to do, or you don't know what impact it's going to have, or you need to come up with all the different activities, or you just need to figure out how you're going to approach solving a problem creatively, right? And make it fun and engaging. This is a great time for you to use an LLM because it can help you with all of that. Your LLM is going to be able to help you pretty much from start to finish, right? This is going to be, if you haven't already picked this up, pick one that's going to be your partner, your tool through pretty much everything that you do, right? Not replacing what you do, but helping to accelerate. If you run into a problem or you run into an issue where you're like, okay, this is going to take me a lot of time, figure out ways that you can leverage your LLM to accelerate that process. So get used to relying on this as an efficiency booster, right? Okay, transcription tools. If you are leading a online workshop, right, then transcription tools are going to be super great for you. An example is Otter AI. I know there's a whole bunch of other ones out there. Otter AI is kind of cool because it says like who is showing up to the meeting. And it's not just like AI note taker. I think there's some out there where it doesn't even say like who it's taking notes for. But Otter AI is super awesome. Even you can use the baked in tools that are in like Zoom and Google Meets and things like that. So just make sure that you have one and you're using it so that you get If you already have a note taker, you get 2 copies. But if you don't have a note taker, you at least have someone or something taking notes for you. And then if you're doing online, another really cool one is 11 Labs. So this is like if you're trying to figure out how can I make this fun, like it's really hard to make things engaging and super entertaining online. 11 Labs is a great way that you can do that. You can add like voice assistants to come in and kind of like be like your co-facilitator during your workshop, right? Again, you got to get creative when it comes to integrating AI into your workflow and your just overall approach to solving things. But this is really great for solo presenters if you're trying to figure out how to spruce things up. And then let's say if you aren't using Figma slides, which I love Figma slides because it just packages everything in one place. As a designer, we live in Figma, right? But let's say you don't, or you don't have Figma slides. Tome is a really great way to just kind of get those slides out and generated quickly. You can prompt against it. They have a lot of great templates as well. So if you're looking for a way to just kind of put all your stuff together relatively quickly, you can use that. It's kind of like Canva, but you do need to have the paid version to prompt against it. If you're trying to like really get everything out of this tool, the paid version is the way to go. The free one isn't as helpful. I've tested it, but if you're trying to figure out like what are your paid tools, paid AI tools that you bring into your toolkit, and you need a presentation builder, Tome is a really great one. Okay, but there are, again, a whole bunch of different tools. I'm always going to encourage you to try them all and figure out which one you like the best for you, right? So Gamma.ai, if you're looking for deck outlines or slides, that's a great one. I'm sorry, Gamma.app. Beautiful.ai is great for slides, and so is Tome, right? If you're looking for transcription, you got Otter.ai, Fireflies, Whisper. So those are great ones. You have a whole bunch of options, right? And there's more out there than these, but you can choose which one you like the most. For the voice assistants, there's also Synthesia. That's a really cool one. I think I personally use 11 Labs, but again, there's a whole bunch out there. Try the ones that you can get your hands on. Look at the reviews, test them out, see if you like the interface, if you like the product, figure out what's behind the paywall, what's not behind the paywall, things like that. That's going to be like how you start evaluating and breaking down what tools you want to use. Okay, so facilitation must-haves. We're at the point where you are showing up to your workshop, right? And it's the day of, let's say you're doing an in-person workshop and you have to figure out what the heck you're bringing with you, right? This is what you need. First, starting off, printouts of your agenda. Make sure that you have copies of it because you don't want to be like checking your phone or jump into your laptop to figure out, like what time it is or when you need to move on to the next activity. You're probably not going to remember it, even though you probably spent days and days planning it. Whenever you're in your workshop, if you're doing it in person, it's really easy to get distracted by just what's happening in front of you. So having that printout to rely on is going to be super helpful, and bring multiple copies. Your facilitation notes. So let's say hypothetically you have never run this workshop before, right? You've never done a Crazy Eights workshop, or you've never done a How Might We workshop, or you've been requested to lead a specific workshop that you've never led before. One, I'm hoping you've done your research in advance on how to do that and got some practice and don't walk into that blinded. But it doesn't hurt to have your own facilitation notes, right? Take notes on the things that you don't want to forget, or even if like you've done it a million times before, but again, the craziness of the day and the chaos of the day might fry your brain. So having a backup is always a great idea. Handouts and prints for the participants. So again, having like copies of the agenda for them could be super helpful as well. Your client more than likely is going to want a copy of that, but even for the actual activities themselves, you could have like the instructions on what the participants are supposed to be doing for that activity. Because let's say, you put it up on a big screen, hey, here are the instructions, da 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 da, for this workshop, and then you move on to the next screen and they're like, wait, what are we supposed to do? This might be their first time participating in a workshop. So having those activity instructions printed out for them so that you can hand them out to each table or person is super helpful as well. and then a wristwatch or whatever kind of watch you want to use. You can use a little tiny timer, you can use a Apple Watch or Samsung Watch. I won't be biased. But you want to be able to keep track of the time easily because, again, you are on an agenda that is broken down minute by minute. And so you need to make sure you're staying on it. Or you can assign someone else to be the time tracker, right? If you're kind of too busy facilitating and you have an additional person on deck that can help you, have their responsibility be to watch the time and keep you on track. All right, so what do you need to bring with you? Bring tissue boxes. I don't care what time of year it is. Everyone has allergies, I feel like. And if you don't, you are very lucky. But bring tissue boxes. You never know, someone's sick or just what they got going on. So make sure you have those out and available. If they're broken up into tables and stuff, I would put one on each table. Sticky notes, you're going to need them. If you work in UX, you should know this by now, so I shouldn't have to explain that one. Hand sanitizer, again, something that you're going to want to have on each of your tables. Keep it clean. We all were here for COVID, so again, not explaining that, but have that out and available for however many groups you have in your workshop. Mints are helpful if you have them staying through lunch, right? We eat all different kinds of things, and no one wants to sit next to the person and have a close conversation and trying to do this workshop and their breath is just dank. So let's just mitigate that by bringing some mints with us, have them out and available for the people who want them. But markers and pens, tape, stopwatch, a speaker is also something that I have forgotten in the past, but a Bluetooth speaker is super helpful too, or having a way to play music through a sound system or an audio system. It's kind of helpful to just have music playing during those moments where people are collaborating or doing group discussions in the background, so it's not super stale in the room, right? So Bluetooth speaker is super helpful to have, and bring the charger as well in case it dies. And then your laptop and charger as well. Don't forget the charger, because that's kind of self-explanatory. You need that. All right, I've covered everything that you need to know before facilitating your next workshop. I hope this was super helpful and good luck. Well, that's a wrap. I hope you learned something new and can add a new skill to your design toolkit. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you here next time.